It started with a casual conversation at the mailbox. My neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, an older woman who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, approached me with a confused expression, her brow furrowed as she adjusted her glasses. "I didn't know you were moving," she said, clutching her grocery bag as if bracing herself for unexpected news. I blinked, caught off guard. "I'm not moving. What makes you think that?" She gave me a strange look, then pulled out her phone and scrolled through Zillow before handing it to me. "Then why is your house listed for sale?" Her voice was tinged with genuine concern, and as my eyes focused on the screen, my stomach dropped. There it was, my house, fully listed, complete with photos and a fake contact email. The listing description claimed it was a motivated seller situation and that the property was available for immediate move-in. Even more suspicious was the asking price, absurdly low, almost as if someone was trying to push a quick sale. A slow, simmering rage built inside me as I scrolled through the page. There was only one person in the neighborhood petty and controlling enough to pull something like this. Karen, the self-proclaimed HOA enforcer, and a perpetual thorn in my side. Karen had been at war with me since the day I moved in. She hated that I didn't grovel to the HOA board like everyone else, that I refused to repaint my house a more uniform color, and most of all, she hated that I knew my rights. Over the past year, she had tried everything to make my life miserable. Petty fines, bogus violation notices, and even harassing my contractors when I got my driveway redone, but this was a new level of insanity. I wasted no time. I took screenshots of the listing, noted the fake email address used, and contacted Zillow's support. Within minutes, I was connected to a representative. Yes, I'd like to report a fraudulent listing. My house has been posted for sale without my permission. The rep on the other end of the line sounded concerned. "We take these reports very seriously. Do you have proof that you are the legal owner?" "But," I smirked, "I can do you one better. I'm a real estate lawyer." There was a pause. "Oh. Well, that certainly simplifies things." After verifying my ownership, Zillow took the listing down within the hour. But I wasn't done, not even close. I needed to find out exactly how Karen had pulled this off. That evening, I dug deeper into the fake listing's details. The email used as the contact point wasn't one I recognized, but with a little sleuthing, I traced it back to a burner account registered under Karen's husband's name. Sloppy. Really sloppy. But it was exactly the kind of reckless move I expected from her. The next morning, I took a slow walk past Karen's house. As expected, she was outside, pruning her already meticulously trimmed bushes. Because of course, her lawn was the standard everyone else had to abide by. When she saw me, she smirked, her face barely concealing her self-satisfaction. "Oh, good morning, I heard you might be moving." I crossed my arms, tilting my head. "Oh, you heard that, did you?" She gave me an innocent shrug. Word travels fast in a well-connected neighborhood. I stared at her, letting the silence stretch long enough for her smile to falter. "Funny, because I just had a fraudulent listing taken down. Any idea how that might have gotten there?" Her expression didn't change, but I saw it, the subtle twitch in her jaw, the barely perceptible shift in her stance. "Well," she said smoothly, "if someone listed your house, maybe it's a sign you should consider selling. This neighborhood has expectations, you know." I let out a low chuckle, shaking my head. "Karen, do you know what happens when you attempt real estate fraud?" She blinked. "Excuse me?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice just enough to make sure she understood the weight of my next words. "Because I do. And I'd be happy to educate you on the legal ramifications." She stiffened, clutching her shears tighter. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I suggest you take your conspiracy theories elsewhere." I smiled. "Oh, don't worry, I'll be taking them exactly where they need to go." Karen had just made a huge mistake, and now it was time to make sure she regretted it. After my confrontation with Karen, I wasted no time. This wasn't just a petty dispute anymore, this was real estate fraud, and I had every intention of making sure she faced the consequences. That evening, I compiled everything I had: the fraudulent Zillow listing, the fake email address linked to her husband, and the messages I had exchanged with Zillow's support team. I drafted a formal complaint and sent it directly to my state's real estate fraud division. If Karen thought this was going to be swept under the rug like one of her usual HOA power trips, she was in for a rude awakening. The next morning I got a call. The local authorities had received my report and were taking it very seriously. Real estate fraud isn't just a slap on the wrist offense. It's a crime with serious consequences, especially if it involves falsifying property sales. They assured me that an investigation was already underway. That same afternoon, while sipping coffee on my porch, I spotted a black SUV with tinted windows rolling into the neighborhood. It wasn't a police car, but it had government plates. A clear sign that someone important had taken an interest in Karen's little scheme. 2 investigators stepped out, both in suits, and marched right up to Karen's front door. I watched with barely concealed amusement as she answered, her usual smug expression evaporating the moment she saw their badges. One of the investigators, a sharp-aimed woman in a navy blazer, wasted no time. "Mrs. Dawson, we're here in connection with an alleged fraudulent real estate listing involving this property address." I saw Karen falter, gripping the doorframe like she might collapse. I don't know what you're talking about." The male investigator pulled out a file. "We have evidence tracing the fraudulent listing back to an account linked to your husband's name. We'd like to ask you a few questions about that." Karen's expression twisted into something between panic and outrage. "This is a misunderstanding. I had nothing to do with that." But her voice lacked the authority she usually wielded when barking HOA orders. The investigators exchanged a glance. "Then you shouldn't have any issue answering our questions down at the station," the woman said coolly. Karen looked ready to explode. "You can't just take me." "Ma'am, we're asking you to cooperate, but we can escalate this to a warrant if necessary." She stood frozen for a long moment before huffing in defeat. "Fine. But I need to call my lawyer." I couldn't help but chuckle. She should have called a lawyer before committing fraud. As they escorted her to their SUV, she shot me a venomous glare. "You did this." I took a slow sip of my coffee. I did what needed to be done. The SUV pulled away, and for the first time in a long while, the neighborhood felt peaceful. But this wasn't over yet. Karen wasn't just facing a slap on the wrist. She was facing potential criminal charges. And I intended to make sure she didn't weasel her way out of this one. Karen's arrest sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, the woman who had terrorized homeowners for years over minor infractions, had been taken away in a government SUV. People whispered about it at the mailboxes, on their porches, and even in the neighborhood Facebook group, where someone had already posted a blurry photo of her being escorted into the vehicle. Some were shocked, others relieved, and a few were outright celebrating. It was as if an oppressive cloud had been lifted from the entire community, and for the first time in years, people felt they could breathe without the constant fear of Karen looming over them, clipboard in hand, ready to issue some absurd violation notice. But as satisfying as it was to see Karen finally get what she deserved, I knew this wasn't the end. If there was one thing I had learned about her, it was that she was relentless. She had spent years bending and breaking rules to get her way, and she wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. If I wanted to make sure she couldn't pull something like this ever again, I needed to see this through to the very end. She had been the architect of her own downfall, but I wanted to ensure that the foundation of her tyranny was dismantled completely, brick by brick, until there was nothing left for her to rebuild. Over the next few weeks, the investigation escalated. I was contacted multiple times for statements, and I happily provided every last detail of her antics. Every bogus fine, every petty attempt to push me out, and of course, the fraudulent Zillow listing. More neighbors came forward with their own horror stories, adding fuel to the fire. Turns out, Karen had tried similar schemes before, pressuring elderly homeowners to move out under false pretenses, accidentally listing rental properties as foreclosures, and even forging documents to block home improvements she didn't like. Her name had been whispered in hushed tones for years, but no one had dared to challenge her. Until now, with all this evidence piling up, The case against her became ironclad. There was no way she was getting out of this one. Then, one morning I received an email that nearly made me spit out my coffee. The subject line? HOA President Resignation Notice. I read it twice just to be sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. Karen had officially stepped down. Her statement cited personal matters as the reason, but everyone knew the truth. She wasn't resigning. She was running. Not long after, the rumors started swirling. Karen's house had been listed. For real this time. The woman who had spent years trying to dictate every aspect of this neighborhood was being forced to leave it behind. And the best part? She had no choice. Between the legal fees, the civil lawsuit some homeowners had filed against her, and the sheer humiliation of her downfall, she had been backed into a corner. All the power she had once wielded over the community was gone, crumbling beneath her like a sand castle against the tide, and I made sure to watch as her empire collapsed around her. A week later, I stood on my porch with a fresh cup of coffee, watching as a moving truck pulled into Karen's driveway. I won't lie. I smiled. She had spent so much time making everyone's lives miserable, and now she was the one being driven out. I could see her standing by her front door, arms crossed, watching the movers load up her things with a deep scowl. It must have been killing her to see everything she built unravel right before her eyes. The day she left, there was no dramatic farewell, no speeches, no parting threats. She simply climbed into her car and drove off without looking back. But as she passed my house, our eyes met one final time. She glared at me, her expression a mixture of hatred and defeat, but I could see the deeper truth behind it. She knew she had lost. I simply raised my coffee mug in a mock toast, a silent victory salute. Goodbye, Karen. The neighborhood had never looked better.